Good afternoon. My name is Sam Fletcher, and I'm the Executive Director of the New York State chapter for NASW. I want to thank you for joining us for our very first chapter chats. We organized this as a way to connect with you, our members, and other social workers across the state, while many of us are working from home and during this crisis, just as a way to be able to connect with each other. And I'm extremely grateful to the board of directors for volunteering to facilitate these talks. I do want to remind you that this is not for continuing education credit. If you're interested in CEs, please visit our website at NASW-NYS.org. We have about 47 continuing education credits up through different programs right now. We just added a new one today, and we'll continue adding them for you. And now I would like to thank Dr. Diane Bessel for volunteering to be our first chapter chat board member to present. Diane is really an integral part of our chapter at NASW. She's been instrumental in helping me come on and start when I did in September. She was the lead orchestrator of our strategic plan, which is phenomenal. And she continues to help me all the time, so I really appreciate it. And I'm going to let her introduce herself to you and let you know who she is, and let her get started with her talk. So I will see you at the end of the broadcast, and thank you for joining us again.
Thanks, Sam. Welcome, everybody. Hello. Thanks for spending some of your afternoon with me today. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, and I'll mention it during the talk as well. I am a MSW program director and an associate professor at Daemen College. I'm primarily a macro social worker, but I have a fair bit of background in financial social work, and I'm going to be sharing with you some tips. Obviously during this time, we're experiencing widespread financial hardship and a lot of uncertainty. And so what I was hoping to do in this chat is really offer some very basic but proactive tips that you can use, that your clients can use, that you can be using with others that you care about in order to help us kind of get ready for what is to come. So I'm going to jump right into it. I am monitoring the questions on the side of the chat. And also, if you have any chat questions, everybody's muted right now on the call, but I'm going to try to make sure I pick those up as I go. We're also hoping to have some time at the end of the session for you to ask other questions or to share some ideas, and we really would appreciate some of that. So I'll kick us off and really just highlight the fact that, obviously, if you've seen any part of the news of late, you've seen the reports of unemployment claims. These are the data from the end of March, the last week of March, where we hit about 6.6 million first-time unemployment claims in the country. And we're seeing in states across the union that most of these unemployment claims are related to service industries, first and foremost in the accommodations area, but also in food services. We're also starting to see, of course, wider impacts. We've seen it in healthcare, we've seen it in social assistance and manufacturing, but more recently, much more reporting on retail and wholesale trade, as well as construction. So it's obviously really very concerning to see 6.6 million initial claims for unemployment in the nation at this time. The implications of that, with the losses of these jobs, we are looking at losses of income. We're looking at concerns about health insurance coverage because the vast majority of us secure our health insurance through our employment. We're seeing challenges securing unemployment benefits and being able to access them. We're seeing, heavier reliance on credit, people living on their credit. Having difficulties paying their rent and their mortgages, their student loans. And obviously with all of this, there were a host of different unanticipated expenses. Now I got to stock up my cupboards. I've got to make sure that I've got supplies to carry us through. College students have to travel back quickly and maybe didn't budget for an extra trip or the timing of that trip. And so there's a lot of hardship that's going on out there at this time. For a lot of people, for our clients, for our friends and families, even for ourselves, we have had our income either cut or stopped altogether. In fact, a recent Pew Research Center poll said that that's the case for about 1 in 3 families right now. And the harsh reality is that for many of us, we're already living paycheck to paycheck. So this financial crisis hits extra hard. You know, if we look at kind of the savings rate of our country, we hover between -2% to about 0% savings. So most of us are really in a tough spot when it comes to finances. Now, the reality is this is not an overly new circumstance. Most of us recognize or lived through the experience of the Great Recession in 2008 and 2010. And obviously it was a wide scale financial crisis, a meltdown, not only affecting the United States, but also globally. The thing to note about the Great Recession was that unemployment in the nation was between 5 and at its height about 10%. And the scary part right now with COVID, not to create undue fear, is that most people are estimating unemployment rates of about 20 to 30%. Now, I think that there's a lot that we can take from our experience with the Great Recession, kind of taking a page out of that book, and what kinds of things could we recommend to people to help them kind of make their pathway forward. I know for myself, during the Great Recession, I was working with CASH, Creating Asset Savings and Hope. We are a coalition of over 60 organizations that were concerned with increasing the financial stability of low to moderate income households in Buffalo and Erie County. And CASH was really designed first and foremost to make sure that people were accessing the government benefits to which they were eligible, but also tax credits, making sure they were able to get all the tax credits that they qualified for. We were also doing a fair bit to provide financial education, whether that was basic budgeting or credit repair, things of that nature. And then we also did a fair bit around asset building, whether that's securing the resources to purchase a vehicle, to buy a home, to be able to start a small business, or ultimately to put their retirement plans into play. And so this coalition did a lot of work during the Great Recession to try to help families out and really help them to navigate a very challenging environment. For me, that was the first time that I was introduced to financial social work. And there are various ways that we do financial social work. The center that I was trained at is the Center for Financial Social Work. What it is essentially a highly interactive, very introspective approach, which is allowing individuals to explore and really start to address some of their unconscious feelings about money. The whole point of financial social work in the day-to-day practice of it is to really enable clients or people to improve their relationship with money and to also to develop some healthier habits. Now, generally speaking, when we think about financial social work, it's just drawing on good social work practice. So how do we engage people? How do we do that in a non-judgmental space, creating safety, developing rapport, helping them to feel trust? What we want to do is make it a safe space to talk about money, to talk about where we feel vulnerable, right? Money questions are often the most uncomfortable questions for many of us, and we hold it very close to the vest. We're very private about our money, and just creating a space for people where it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to feel like I don't know enough about it, because none of us got enough financial education coming up. The other piece about financial social work that I really appreciate is this idea of helping people to have concrete actions that they can take in order to improve their lives, whether that's putting together a budget, which is not always the most fun thing to do, whether it's thinking seriously about their credit and their use of credit, whether it is asset building, whether it is planning for the future. That's really at the core of some of the skills that we help people to develop using financial social work. The other piece of the puzzle in terms of financial social work, as that I define it, is really about connecting people to resources. So for the beginning part of this chat, what I wanted to do is just get some ideas into everybody's heads about what they can be doing proactively right now related to the financial crisis, acknowledging the clear uncertainty that we have in all of this right now and the lack of awareness of what the government is or is not going to provide, whether that's at the local, the state, or even the federal level. But my goal is to really give you a couple of things, couple of tools that you can use for yourself, you can use with your clients, you can use with friends and family, really trying to get some of this out there for what we can do proactively right now. And it's my hope that we as social workers can try to help mitigate some of the stress that comes from the financial uncertainty. So we've got a couple of things, like I said, I got about 8 proactive things that I'm hoping we can do, and then I'm going to open it up for just questions and ideas. But essentially, I want to talk about budgeting. I want to talk about how we can fix some of the spending leaks in our own lives, things that we're spending money on that maybe we might not need to, or other resources that we might not be aware of that we can draw on. I want to also talk about, utilizing resources that are available in our communities, prioritizing what bills do you pay first, where should you focus your efforts and energies, how to talk with a creditor, what is the look ahead in terms of what the state and the federal government are kind of doing right now. I want to kind of underscore the importance of watching out for predators during this time, because they certainly are preying on vulnerable populations. And then I also just want to acknowledge how hard this work is and how taxing it is on all of us, and really encouraging us to maintain our self-care, even in light of any financial concerns that we might have. So I'm going to start where most financial educators start, and that's with the budget. And really, when we're doing budgeting, it's super important to just lay it plain, right? Get everything that you can, think about all the expenses that you have. And, sometimes people say, oh, I don't really want to put that down. I don't really want to think about that. That'll be okay. This is one of those times where you just want to be as real as you can about where your expenses are, what they are presently, because we can't deal with what we don't know. So it's really important to really lay plain all of the different expenses that we have coming into our households. And of course, we've got the biggies. We've got rent and mortgage. We've got household repairs. We've got taxes, heat, electricity. I think this is a really nice comprehensive list. And I understand that after the session, we're going to send out some resources, including a nice budget sheet that you can use. But groceries, insurance, telephone, transportation. Obviously, we're not really going anywhere right now too much. But you still have car payments, we still have auto repairs, clothing, really everything down to resources we need, tobacco, alcohol, faith, tithing, really just laying out as much as you can all of the different expenses you have. And generally, this is a list I use during everyday times. And obviously, with COVID, there might be additional circumstances, or you might have less, but you really want to account for, in the everyday, in the day-to-day, these are my expenses. You also want to think about all the different mechanisms, all the different sources of income that you might have, whether that's your take-home pay or the take-home pay of a spouse, a partner, anybody else you're living with who's maintaining that household with you. You want to acknowledge part-time work that you might be doing. I would also include in this number self-employment work or consulting that you might be doing. Certainly want to account for any child support or alimony, pension payments, Social Security, other random streams that might be coming in. And of course, thinking about if we are receiving temporary assistance to needy families or cash assistance, food stamps, or any kind of child care subsidy. So we really want to think about what are all of those sources of income, get it down on a sheet of paper, and really start to think about, okay, where am I financially at this moment in time? The next thing I really encourage people to start thinking about is, where do I have leaks in my spending? Are there mechanisms, are there things that I can be doing to reduce my costs just to start off? So, right now we're starting to get into a warmer climate, warmer season, maybe making sure that our heating and cooling costs, that we're, maybe we open our windows, and once it gets warm, we're not as so much using air conditioning, kind of delaying that as long as we can, or reducing our heat as much as we can. Rewearing clothing. Obviously has its benefits in terms of the clothing, but also the costs of laundry detergents and those types of things. A lot of us are using streaming services, our Netflix, our Hulu, our Disney Plus, whatever it is in a household. Do we need all of the streaming services at once? Can we cut back a little bit there? Over time, thinking about our credit or the credits that we're using, what are our credit card rates, and are there ways to think about that? If you're using money orders to pay bills, or your clients are using money orders, might this be the time to start to think about, free checking or a credit union account, things of that nature. And over time, really just trying to reduce those spending leaks where we're throwing good money out the window because of the things that we haven't really thought about. Another thing that's really important right now in the time of COVID is a lot of us had money squirreled away in different things, right? Whether that's your gym membership that you can't be using, or you might have just put money in your kid's school lunch account. I know I did that. I realized I just made a payment for the rest of the year into that. And so in my mind's eye, I know that's a little slush fund. I know that's a little bucket of funding that if I need to pursue to bring that back in to the household, that I can do that. Likewise, you might have had travel, you might have had flights that have been canceled. A lot of the airfares from that, they've been putting them on account. That's money that's staying in their pocket and not in your pocket. And so it might be a time to advocate to say, no, I want that reimbursed to my credit card. I want that taken care of instead of taking a flight at a later time. This is also the time to really look through your credit and your debit statements. Maybe you had a magazine subscription, it was free at first, and then all of a sudden you start paying for it and you don't even realize it. There's a lot of little things that end up on our credit or on our debit accounts that we don't take the time necessarily in everyday life to be looking at. So you really, really want to be thinking about, where are these little extraneous buckets? If I can't go to the gym, why am I paying for it, right? Like those types of things that we can kind of mitigate. The last thing we really want to be thinking about, of course, and are always thinking about, is what available resources might there be? Is there a local food pantry that I can be utilizing for food? And it might not just be for now, it might be for the foregoing future. Likewise, a lot of the schools are offering school breakfast, school lunch, they'll do meal distribution. There are free tax preparation sites, and I really want to caution you around those. If you go to the IRS, they have a free file area if you do a search on that, and it will give you access to doing tax filings for yourself, for your clients, what have you, so that you don't have to go to a tax preparer. Ultimately, we will be paying taxes in the future. Obviously, there's a stall on that right now, but it's really important to be thinking about, like, where can I cut the costs? Where can I reduce things? Childcare subsidies, your community might have some of those in place right now. The other thing is, I would really encourage us all. I remember during the recession, we had done a booklet. I don't know if my camera's still on. I was working at United Way, and we did a Getting Back on Track. And it was just a guide to available community resources and services. Your community might have some of those lists being developed. And if not, it might be something that you want to develop in thinking about your clients as well. I do want to spend a minute talking about prioritizing bills. In our new reality, we can't prioritize every bill equally. Some bills right now are going to be more important than others. And the reality is, though many of us might want to like just put it out of our head, you can't ignore your bills or they're going to get worse, right? And our clients might also have that, like, if I don't have to pay for it, I don't have to see it, it's going to go away. The reality is, no matter what, we've got to prioritize what we're going to pay, and we've got to be strategic on how we're going to deal with this for the foreseeable future. And always keep in mind, they're not going to go away, even if we put ourselves on a different plan, even if we do a different due date for things, they're still going to need to get paid at some point. So I think the most experts would agree that there's kind of a prioritization. And I would say right now, in the time of COVID, I might reverse some of that. So the first thing is housing. So, paying for your rent, paying for mortgage always come first, because, kind of falling into a homeless situation where you might be forced to couch surf or to have to utilize DSS is not a thing that's comfortable for a lot of folks. So we really want to encourage everybody to be paying on that rent, paying on that mortgage. We're going to talk about kind of the moratoriums on eviction in a little bit. But this is probably, when you're thinking about your budget, when you're thinking about your your expenses, your expectation is to, of course, pay for that housing first. The second thing, and normally I wouldn't place this second, is to think about those service-based bills, whether that's your cell phone and your internet, because those are things that are lifelines right now. If your cell phone were to go down, or if your internet service were to be cut off at this moment in time, the likelihood is you'd be in some real trouble, whether you're educating kids at school or trying to get access to benefits or getting information. This is the mechanism. And so we want to prioritize this a little higher than what I would do during regular times. The next piece out is likely bills that you're already behind on. If you are already behind on them, we're going to talk about creditors in a second and how to negotiate with creditors. But you do want to make sure that anything that you're in some trouble on, it doesn't kind of go over that. You don't have more trouble as a result of this. And then beyond that, we really want to think about, okay, what are the student loans? What are our credit cards? Any medical debt? And start to think about calling those creditors. Now, normally as a financial educator, I would say to you, like, debt goes first, put savings, as you can. In this moment in time, and I've looked at other experts as well, they've really said, try to get a little savings together if you can, right? Most of us, like I said, our nation, our savings rate is really, really low, -2% to 1% in a given year, right? That we're more underwater than we are above water in our finances. But I really would recommend, even if it's $5, $10, $15 a week, to just start putting something into an emergency fund, because we don't know exactly what the future is going to be quite yet. Having a little bit of a cushion is going to be a good thing. Now, it's trying to balance all these things as we go about it. I mentioned talking to creditors, and one of the places that I really rely on is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They have a lot of good resources on credit and creditors. The big thing that we would say to anybody is be proactive. Don't wait. Contact your lender, your service provider, your creditor. And here, do that before you miss a payment. Here we're talking about your credit cards. We're talking about auto loans. We're talking about mortgages, but we're also talking about student loans. So those are usually the four. It's those credit cards, it's those auto loans, mortgage, and student loans. Now, one thing, if you do secure federal student loans, the federal government has said that they will not be demanding repayment on those until the end of September of this year. But if you're getting your student loan from any other lender, you want to check in on this. The options that are available to you as you're talking to a creditor, sometimes it's a change in your payment date. So I can't pay it on the first of the month anymore. I've got to wait till later in the month. I got to wait for this to kick into my household. You can make requests for partial payments, or you can also make requests for payment plans. Be wary. A lot of credit card companies, especially those store companies, will try to put you into a credit protection plan. And really, those credit protection plans are designed to put money into the hands of those companies, as opposed to just being concerned with you. Like, yes, if you pay that $39 a month, you're getting that coverage. But ultimately, it's not necessarily going to resolve the credit issues that you've got. And so you just want to read the fine print when you're looking at them. Likewise, if you're looking to get some help with your credit at this time, you really want to be careful about reputable credit repair organizations. You want to consult your Better Business Bureau and make sure that they're up and up. One of the primary ones that's out there is Consumer Credit Counseling. Generally speaking, in communities, that's a good resource to turn to help you with debt resolution. Now, when you're talking to a creditor, you obviously want to remain calm. You know that a lot of people are in your circumstance. You want to be proactive as much as possible, but be ready to state, this is my financial employment situation. They may ask about that. This is how much I can afford to pay. Having done your budget and looked at kind of where you are financially in the whole picture of things, I can pay this much, or I can do this much. You also want to be able to give some semblance, where possible, as to when you might be able to do a repayment, like a typical repayment on your debt. And you might have to add some information about your income and your expenses and your assets. They can't ask you for an elaborated piece of information on that, but they can ask you for some of the basics around it. This may also be a good time to look at your credit report if you're inclined to do so. And I just want to make sure that everybody's aware. There are a lot of places that promise free credit reports. There's only one that is sanctioned by the federal government, and that is annualcreditreport.com. Again, annualcreditreport.com, all one word. I know it sounds like it's a crazy, kooky one. It is approved by the Federal Trade Commission. They are the only ones. I know that com makes it sound like you shouldn't trust it. They also have a phone number. It's 1-877-322-8228. But that is a place where you can pull up your credit report or the credit report of someone and help them to get a picture on where things stand. Now, you can pull them once a year through that free resource without hurting your credit, which I'm sure you may be aware of, that's always a concern. All right, so looking ahead, as I said in the beginning of this, we're really not 100% sure what's going to be available in the future as far as federal or state aid or local aid. I can give you kind of a basic idea of what is available now. So I'll mention two sites, USA.gov, and then also if you go to the New York State COVID-19 general website, under the tag Know Your Rights, there are some specific pieces of information that might be really important to you. Okay, so one thing a lot of people are asking about is when are the checks coming, the emergency relief checks. And the IRS is coordinating some of the efforts. They do have their own website, the IRS Coronavirus Tax Relief page. These checks are going to come out based on your 2019 tax returns, and they're going to go direct deposit to the address that was on your tax filing. There is a web portal if you've had a change in your address since you've done that filing, but they're generally coming to you. They're supposed to be direct deposited as well. If you didn't file, if you're a senior or someone who was not responsible for filing, maybe you're a low-income worker, if you didn't file in 2018, 2019, seniors, it's going to be sent out directly to you. Low-income taxpayers at this point, unfortunately, are being urged to file either for 2018, 2019 to make sure that they're accessing this resource. And then SSI recipients, at this point, the government has said they're working out the details. So that's the latest information on that. Just so you know what people are supposed to be securing, if you have an income of $75,000 or under as an individual, you're supposed to be receiving $1,200 from the federal government. If you're a couple, it's up to $150,000 and you'll be receiving $2,400. There's also $500 for each qualifying child, but you have to have valid Social Security numbers to receive these benefits. Now, I want to flip over to New York State because a lot of the federal law that was passed is being implemented at the state level, and there are some particulars for New York State. So first, I'll mention paid sick leave. There are guaranteed job protections in place here in New York and guaranteed pay. There is also financial compensation for anybody who had to leave their employment because of mandatory or precautionary quarantines. What we're seeing around that paid sick leave is that there's a web address that you can be going to. Again, it's on that COVID-19 New York State webpage, and you'll want to be able to check that out. It is a sick leave, COVID-19 sick leave page. That's what you'll be looking for on that. Unemployment. You've heard a lot about unemployment here in New York State and the challenges associated with filing either by phone or online. We saw in the last week of March, there were over 370 claims just in New York alone, 370,000. Did I say that right? Yes. In the last week of March alone. They are trying to mitigate some of this and are now saying if your last name is A through F, you file on Mondays. If you're G through N, you file on Tuesdays. If you are O through Z, you file on Wednesdays. And then Thursday, Friday, anybody who missed their cycle can apply. Now I'm hearing 2.5 hours on phone, on hold waiting. I'm hearing, really large scale reports on this. In regards to it, the DOL website is a good resource for you for New York State. The waiting period has been waived. You can claim unemployment insurance. And in New York State, they've extended the eligibility for people who've traditionally been ineligible, which would be our self-employed and independent contractors. New York is providing an additional $600 per week on top of the regular benefits. And New York has also extended to 39 weeks of unemployment, which is beyond what the federal government has done at this point in time. I want to mention insurance for those of you who no longer have access to insurance because of your unemployment status. There is a special enrollment period being offered in New York through the New York State of Health website, and that will end on May 15th. They're also advertising co-payment related to telehealth being waived, free mental health services. I know that there's over 1,300 people that have already been trained, many of them in our ranks. And then they've also done some deferrals of some other things. The last thing I want to mention, or two other things I want to mention, is mortgage. So there's a 90-day mortgage relief for mortgage borrowers, and then for rent, they're looking at a 90-day moratorium. And there is no eviction proceedings until mid-June in New York State. So if you know somebody who's being threatened with eviction for non-payment for any reasons, there are websites that you can access through New York State. And regarding utilities, although there's high variability from different providers, there is no rate increase in New York State. Now, I just gave you a lot. I'm hoping that we're recording all this, but all of these resources are available to you through the federal government or through New York State as well. Just really during this time, I really want to caution people about predators, right? There's always somebody looking for an opportunity to scam somebody else and to take advantage, particularly of vulnerable populations. I have an elder mother-in-law who lives downstairs, and I'm always telling her, just don't even pick up the phone. Don't even, because, nobody else is calling her unless it's to scam her. And, she's very susceptible, and we talk about it a lot. One of the big ones that you're going to hear about, likely, if you haven't already in your own community, is that there are some groups that are mailing out checks, like random checks to different households. A lot of people are assuming this is the federal government's checks, which they've said is going to be 3 or 4 weeks before those come into play. Do not cash random checks, and please tell your clients not to cash random checks. What these are is an attempt to be able to access your account. People are desperate for money. They're desperate to be able to access resources, but a lot of times this is a mechanism by which they're able to access your accounts. Just be reminded always that nobody should ask you for your account information. Nobody should ever be asking you for your Social Security, your credit card numbers, any of those things. And no one from the federal government will be calling anybody to ask for that information. They would send you a formal letter if they were to do that, and you would be able to kind of discern. The other piece is just to really be careful about the price gouging. I know in some communities it's worse than others, but you can report price gouging to the Federal Trade Commission if you're seeing it in your community. All of this is stressful. It's all very, very difficult. And I really want to remind everybody, be kind to yourself, and especially as it comes to financially related matters. Most of us don't get a ton of financial education as we're coming up. Certainly, there's always more we can be learning with regard to finances. And, for a lot of us, this caught us unawares, right? Most of us probably would never have predicted that this was going to happen. We can't undo the past, and we particularly can't undo the past in the immediate, right? Like, we can make plans and we can kind of be as proactive as we can be, but we can't undo anything right now. All we can do, all any of us can do, is start to get a good look at where we are, what we're looking at, and start to make a plan for the future. And that future is this future, but it's also the foregoing future. I said it before and I'll say it again, we have to work from knowledge. We have to get an accurate picture of where things are. And then we've got to figure out, okay, what are the next steps? So in all of this, as we start to be able to kind of move about again, looking at low cost, no cost strategies to entertain ourselves. What are the things that we really need? What are the things that we don't? What are the web-based opportunities? And how might we engage in some level of self-care in this? And I think it's really important to share that with clients as well, and make sure that they, this can weigh heavy, especially if you've been living paycheck to paycheck and, this uncertainty is really, really difficult. Trying to have some kind of a release is going to be really important for all of us. Wanted to mention these sources. We are going to be sending out the budget form as well as some materials on the Center for Financial Social Work. These are just good references. The New York State COVID website is very useful, especially the section on Know Your Rights. The Consumer Financial Protections Bureau offers some really good tip sheets on how to handle certain situations. And of course, USA.gov provides information about unemployment and things of that nature as well. So really encourage you to check some of them out. Okay, so at the end of the day, I really did want to open it up for questions and become a little bit more chatty. I do want to say at the onset, yes, I'm a financial educator. Yes, I've been trained in these various techniques, but I am not a lawyer. I am not a financial advisor, and nor do I work for the government, just to be clear with everybody. So I might not have all the information, but I'm hoping if people do have some questions, they want to pose them, or maybe they have some ideas that they want to share with the crowd, that we could open it up for that. So I'm gonna try to close this out and try to open it up for any live conversation that we might want to have. I'll do the teacher pause too. Anybody have any comments?
If anyone has questions or comments, we're going to encourage you to write them into that questions box located on your control panel. It should be on the right-hand side of your screen. If you can't see it, I recommend you minimize any other tabs that you might have open. It should be right there. You can shoot them into us. Joe looks like she's wondering how we're going to send out the information. Joe, we're going to send it out to the email that you registered with right after 4 o'clock. So it will be by email.
Other questions, comments, things you're seeing with your own clients? I acknowledge it's a lot of information. Happy to talk through any of it. Are folks seeing anything with their own clients where this is coming up? Potentially?
All right, we have one from Christine. She has a family that's concerned about eviction. The parent is uncertain how to move forward given this current situation.
So I think the first thing I would say regarding an eviction is that they can't move on evictions right now here in New York State, assuming that this family is in New York State. One of the things that I did a fair bit of research just to make sure I was state of the art on this is to talk with landlords, and to make them aware as much as you feel comfortable or are you able to, the circumstances that you're in, and seeing what they're willing to do and how they might be willing to work with you. If the Great Recession is any indicator, and again, we don't know, we can't know for certain what the federal, state, or local governments are going to do. There might be a move towards rapid rehousing resources being available, which is what we saw during the Great Recession back in 2008 and 2010. And those were resources that could pay a rent payment to keep somebody housed. They were funds that could pay first and last month if somebody was already removed from their home. And so we're hopeful that those resources are available. So, again, I can't give you a point by point on that, but I would think the best thing to do is really get a handle on what they could pay, work with the landlord as much as they're able. Some landlords are going to be more resistant to that than others, but get a sense of where they stand. And then, I think I'm sure that NASW National and across the country are going to be advocating for some housing reliefs as we move forward. I certainly know that there will be groups that are on the ground doing that. The thing is, the Great Recession might give us some guidance as to what worked. We've had to go through some of this before, and so I'm hopeful that advocacy groups will kind of move on that as we go forward. Sorry, I can't give you more of an answer than that. Okay, I'm trying to check all the, okay. So clients are afraid and they don't know when this will end. You know what? Clients are not alone in that. We're all afraid, and none of us know when this will end. I think for me and the work that I've done, helping them to do things that they can do right now is an important piece of the puzzle, right? Like, I know, I have it in my classroom, and my students have been in a panic about their lives and their future. And for this younger generation, this is like the third time out on some of these issues. And so what we've tried to do is, introduce like proactive strategies. What can you do today? Let's get a sense of where you are financially. Let's get a sense of where things exist for you. Let's keep an eye out for resources that might be available. And for us as social workers, that may be an important role that we play, is gathering those information and getting it out to our clients. That could be a really proactive stance. When situations are out of control, we as social workers often say, control what you can. And so that is what I would recommend for people at this time.
I see another question, Diane.
Yeah.
Any suggestions for educating college students?
Sure. About which? Financial stuff? So I think for a lot of college students, so I'm a college professor myself, my experience is that they are very uncertain as to where the market will be at the end of the day, whether they can pay for books, whether they can continue to do this. And I think, again, it's in this moment, the best we can do is say, okay, we don't know right now. What mechanisms do you have? What resources might you be able to secure? For some college students, they might have resources within their families, others may not. I know a lot of them are really, I have a number of students who are toggling between staying home and continuing to work, because they're very incentivized by, you can get a ton of hours right now at the local grocery store, and balancing their health, and just helping them to process through some of those decisions and the implications for that. I don't know that helps with everything. At a college perspective, I can speak to the college that I'm at. We're really trying to work with our students to make it as viable as possible. A number of colleges are talking about reducing summer classes, reducing the costs of tuitions, things of that nature. I would hate for people who are kind of moving through to forego the opportunity to finish their education. So, really looking at what resources your local college is going to be able to provide to you to support you in this is part of it. Okay.
Joe, sorry. Go ahead. Joe asked, as changes continue with state, federal government resources, will you be providing update? I want to interject that you're doing us a huge favor by doing this, so I don't want to guarantee that at all. So I'll hand it over to you, and no pressure.
Well, see, the thing is, we did this during the recession. We put together, and I don't know if you could see it before, we put together this little resource guide, and I actually had half a thought of updating it in the current environment and having some students take that on as a bit of a project. I feel like a lot of this is unknown right now. So if NASW wanted me to come back and try to do another update once things become a bit more known, I'm happy to do that. I'd also be happy at some point to do a proper financial social work training for anybody who might be interested in it, maybe for CEUs, because I just got to touch on that a little bit today. This is more kind of, let me give you some info. But yeah, Sam, if you'd have me back, I'd be happy to do an update down the road.
I think that's a great idea. And I think we could definitely look at doing this as CEs, you know, maybe in June or July when we're a little further down the road, to be able to give people that opportunity to be updated and get more information. There's a new question from Nancy. She asked, do you know what the criteria is for unemployment for people who are self-employed and have a cut in income during this time?
I don't want to speak to it directly. I did do some research on it. Let me see if I can find that. Your best resource on this is the Department of Labor website for New York State. Again, I'm not a government actor. I don't even pretend to play one on TV. I think your best bet is the Department of Labor website. If you go on the COVID-19 website, Know Your Rights page, there's very scant information about self-employment or, you know, kind of that type of employment, but the DOL website had more. One thing I can do is also provide some more links, and if, you know, if Amelia would be willing to send that out as well, I'd be happy to do that. It's a lot of information to take in, and as much as, you know, we can kind of streamline that for people, I think we should be. So let me provide a link for that, because I would hate to misquote it and have incorrect information out there.
Diane, is that something that you can get to me? I'll hold that email for a sec, and then make sure it's included in the first email out, or are we thinking at another time?
I can try. I have several appointments after this one, so I can't guarantee when it'll be done, but I can certainly try to get something out to you quickly. But I think the DOL site was the site that I thought had the most robust information. USA.gov has it at a federal level, but the New York State kind of implementation is what you're really aiming for if you are in New York.
That's no problem, Diane. I'm just going to have it scheduled as it is, and we can provide updates as we have them.
Terrific. Okay. So, okay, I'm just trying to read through. There are a couple of great resources that people have listed. For college students, the TRIO academic coaches and federal programs, they do require a financial literacy component. In order to get a student loan, students do get those. They're short, they're pretty limited, but they at least help them to understand the nature of finances. So that's a great component as well. I know a lot of colleges are starting to talk about, we need to do more financial literacy for students. I know our business department is always mentioning it. And so, you know, hopefully more colleges take that on as we go forward. I'm very concerned about our Gen Z, Gen Y generation, because, you know, their futures, they've had a rough road financially in general, and this is going to add to that. So I'm seeing smiley face, please share. Gotcha. Put you on the mailing list. We'd be happy to do that. Are there other ideas, other suggestions, other questions that people might have? This is our first time doing this, so we hope that you're getting something from it. Somebody mentions NFPG. I'm not sure what that is.
I looked it up. For me, it's saying Newcastle Financial Planning Group.
Oh, okay.
We have someone's recommending that. Quickly, it says it's a group of financial advisors. I don't want to make an endorsement as NASW, but it's a resource that one of our attendees has suggested.
Wonderful. I think that's going to be the nature of this for the next little bit, is, you know, each one of us sharing whatever resources we have in the hopes of helping everybody to get through it. I think this is the topic that hits everybody hard, you know, and there's so much uncertainty around it.
I also wanted to let everyone know that we have a COVID-19 resource center on the NASW website right now for New York State. We also have a section that requests that if there's any resources that you don't see on our page that you think we should be providing, that you can submit that to us. We believe the best resource for a social worker is another social worker. So I want to encourage you to go check that out. And if there's anything that you think that we should be adding to it, submit the form and let us know, and it will be updated.
So another respondent just mentioned that some colleges have food pantries. That is very true. We've seen an uptick in homelessness among college students in general and food instability in colleges in general. And so several schools do have that. Unfortunately, at the moment, most schools are not operational. I know at our school, we have 135 students still on campus. But in the foreseeable future, those food pantries on college campuses will be a vital resource for folks. That's for sure.
While we're waiting for any final questions or comments, I want to just plug our next chapter chat, which is on Monday at 6 o'clock. It's with Billy Jones, and she's going to be talking about trauma during COVID and how we deal with that.
Sounds great. Can't wait. All right, I'm not seeing really any more questions or comments coming through. Give it a second. I, for one, just want to thank NASW for giving me a chance to talk about some of this stuff. I do think there are lessons in the Great Recession that can help us forge a way forward, but we know that this is going to be a lot more complex. It's going to be a much deeper financial consideration, I think, going forward. And I think it'll be up to us to advocate for the things that we're going to need for not only for ourselves, but also for our clients. So
I want to thank you, Diane, again for taking time out of your very busy schedule. I know Diane won't let you know, but she's balancing multiple things right now. And I really appreciate you putting this together for the members. And I can tell they appreciate, because I see a lot of thank yous in the questions and appreciation of the resources. And again, we'll look at doing a continuing ed on this in the summer as we get a little further along and have more resources.
I can make that promise. I'm happy to get more stuff out there as things get clearer.
All right.
All right.
I think we'll look at wrapping it up. Again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. I'm so happy to get to interact with our members and get to see you. And I know we're all feeling a little, shut in right now, and our worlds are upturned. So it's just great to be able to interact with you on this platform. And again, join us Monday for Billy Jones. We're looking really forward to it. And thank you for Diane for such a successful kickoff of the Chapter Chat series.
All right, everybody, be safe.
Enjoy your day.
Thank you, everyone. Be well.